Hello, Dog TV. Joe Meyers back here for another Dog TV Chats. We wanted this one to be really informative, given some recent news that hit the mainstream, some news outlets and some things reported, and we really wanted to bring you some updated information about COVID-19 and dogs and what to do as a pet parent during this season. So please welcome my guest, Dr. David Haworth, Dog TV veterinarian advisor. Welcome, Dr. David.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be back.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about the first topic at hand. What happened with Buddy and the reported what occurred in sort of that case. It was reported, top headline, click headline, was dog dies with COVID.
Sure.
That I know that frightened a lot of pet parents. There was a lot of worry, but you were able to look into it a little bit and sort of bring some light into it. So what's the sort of status as it stands today of the scientific community?
Well, it frightened me too. I mean, I think all of us should be concerned, and that's the big fear. There's so much we don't know about this virus, about the COVID-2, and we, as much as we'd like to, we like to jump to conclusions and act like we know everything. We really don't. But if you'll indulge me a little bit of microbiology, let me start off by talking a little bit about how viruses infect mammalian cells. So there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of virus strains and species that are out there. But only a handful of them make us sick. And the reason for that is the way viruses get into our cells, they come into our body and then get into our cells, is a lock and key mechanism where they find a protein that's on the outside of a cell and they lock specifically onto there, and then they get brought into the cell. Now, once they're in the cell, they hijack that cell's machinery and start dividing and eventually kill the cell, releasing millions and millions of more viral particles to go in and infect others. Mm-hmm. The reason we get sick, by the way, is because our immune system either doesn't pay attention to it and a bunch of those cells die, or it pays attention to it too much and overreacts to the fact that there's a virus in the body, and then we hit what we call a cytokine storm, and people can also pass away from that. So in this case, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, locks onto a specific protein. Name doesn't matter, but it's the angiotensin converting enzyme 2, and it locks onto that ACE protein. Now, the protein that's in a human is a little different than that same protein, that same ACE2 protein that's in other species. And so that's why we can be pretty confident when we look. Very rarely can a virus jump between species. Clearly, this one did. In November or December, somewhere in Wuhan, jumped between species. Now, either it came onto a human and then had a mutation, or it mutated and was able to get into the human cells. But that really speaks to whether our pets can carry the virus. And so now, as of today, there have been 20 pets around the world, compared to 7 million people.
Yep.
20 pets have been tested positive for COVID-2, carrying that virus. 7 dogs. There are various numbers, but 7 is the biggest number of dogs I've ever heard of, including in early June, Buddy, the German Shepherd from upstate New York. Mm-hmm. So what happened there, quick synopsis of the case: Buddy was coughing, didn't feel well. The owner, the week prior, had been tested positive for COVID-2 and had fulminant disease, so he had disease, and of course, he was coughing, and probably everything and everybody in that house had been exposed to the virus. Buddy was coughing. He went in, came back. The vet didn't think there was much to do. He came back a couple of days ago. A couple of days later, they tested him. He tested positive for PCR, and then they sent that to the national laboratory, which confirmed that the virus was present in Buddy, the German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, Buddy, the German Shepherd, had lymphoma. So he's a 7-year-old German Shepherd dog. Unfortunately, no one hates cancer more than I do. But in this case, Buddy was also battling cancer. Now, Buddy passed away. And the real question that I think is the germane question is, did he pass away because of the COVID-2 virus or with it? Did he pass away from lymphoma and just happened to have also had COVID? I will tell you from the CDC's perspective, as well as the American Veterinary Medical Association, it is overwhelmingly likely that he passed away from lymphoma and not the virus.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear, especially given the environment and that we're, cross species between. Is there anything changed? I know you've been on the show a couple of months ago. Initially, a lot of really good advice. And if you want to watch that, it's on YouTube, here on Facebook, in the Dog TV app. Has anything changed over the last couple of months on interacting with dogs during this season, given the knowledge and the understanding between interspecies mixing?
Yeah, not much, really. I think what we've done is confirmed a lot of the suspicions that we had a few months ago. The suspicion that pets really probably weren't passing it on. The suspicion that you can find it. Pets can test positive, but oftentimes that's just their remnants. If you remember Winston the pug, we had a conversation there. Winston turns out to be a case where they tested positive, but it almost assuredly they didn't. When they tried to confirm that at the national laboratories, they couldn't confirm it. They in fact said he probably just had viral remnants in his body. So if you imagine someone who is sick with COVID, they're putting out a lot of virus in the aerosols and in their cough. And as a result, everything, the couch, the tables, the countertops, and the pets will also get covered in that. Now, the real question that we have to ask is, when it comes into the pet's body, can it get into a cell? And if you remember that lock and key mechanism I talked about a second ago, sometimes you can force a key into a close lock. And dogs' locks aren't very close. Cats' lock, or the ACE2 protein on the cells that line the respiratory tract, for cats, it's a little closer. It's a little, and so for ferrets, mink, cats, and hamsters, it's closer to what a human's looks like. And so it looks like that virus can get into those animals easier, but still not easily, if that makes sense. Yeah,
that makes sense. The couch could have tested positive for COVID, just like the dog could have.
The couch could have. The football could have. Unfortunately, we don't test those things, or maybe best that we don't. Sure. It does go back to, if you are sick with COVID, you do need to be concerned. Everything that you're surrounded by is going to be exposed to that virus. Now, luckily for all of us, it goes away pretty quickly. It dies within hours to days. It is no longer able to be transmitted. Yep. But the AVMA still recommends that if you are sick, or if you are tested positive and you are sick with COVID, you should try to avoid being close to your pets. You shouldn't be getting lots of kisses. You shouldn't be giving pets. In fact, the best thing to do is to get the pet out of the house, just like your family members. And so one thing is that people recommend is to make sure that you've got a travel case put together. Have some food, the bowls, the leashes and collars, even the crate for the right sized animal, and have somebody who you've talked to already to say, hey, if one of us gets sick, could we take the other person's pet for a few days? Excellent. Other than that, dog parks, 6 feet, avoid dog parks, try to limit the intermingling that we have. But social distancing works for pets just like it works for people.
Excellent. And thank you so much. That's super helpful information and being prepared for this. And I know the headlines always say coronavirus. Is there anything else with dogs or cats that are coming up as an unintended side effect of us social distancing and lessing veterinarian care? Is there anything that maybe we should be also secondarily aware of? And 12 dogs, 12 animals, 12 cats and dogs in the entire world. There are other things that are happening. Is there anything, sort of unforeseen side effects of us socially distancing or not going to the vet as often?
Oh, yeah. I think there's both positives and negatives. I think the interesting thing is this is probably, while this is a terrible time for humans, it's probably been one of the best times for our pets. The dream of every dog, I can't speak to cats, but the dream of every dog has been that their owners get to stay home all the time and get to pay all the attention to them, and they get all the attention. So, that's been happening for a large segment of our population. Now, there have been a lot of veterinarians who have had to change the way that they practice, either shutting down completely or more likely doing things like dropping off in the parking lot, taking care of, and then taking them out. There was a time period where many veterinarians were putting off all elective procedures, which can be pretty important ones, like spaying and neutering or vaccinations. I think most parts of the country are opening back up, hopefully slowly, and veterinarians have in all 50 states been deemed essential workers. So for the most part, if your veterinarian isn't able to see your pet for some specific thing, another veterinarian will be able to, and you probably ought to look into that at this point. You know, sure, pets aren't being seen by the veterinarians nearly as often, so things like dental procedures haven't been happening. Things that are non-emergent and elective kind of wait. We've seen a lot more scruffy dogs out there on dog TV and social media because they're just not able to get into the groomer as much as they used to be able to.
Very, very, very true. And then the other incredible trend that emerged from this is adoption, whether for rescues or new puppies. What is that tip from your side of sort of raising a dog in this new brave new world where they maybe haven't left your side in 4 months? Is that something that can continue on, or is there something that parents should be doing?
Great questions, Joe. I mean, I think there are obviously benefits to being able to spend an intensive amount of time with your new pet for the first few months. There are also, of course, detriments when you have to go back, if you have to go back to the workforce and kind of resume that normalcy that we had in the before times. The ways that we recommend is habituate your pet to this. It's going to be traumatic for you, but it's going to be much more traumatic for them. They've never seen a world, their house, without you in it. So try to go out periodically, spend a little time away from them, then come back in. It doesn't have to be long. Go outside, stand in the front yard for 3 minutes, and then come back into the house. Maybe extend that out to half an hour, but I don't think you have to extend it out to a full working day. And then secondly, find great, engaging enrichment activities for your pet to do while you're away. Those obviously include toys, games, and dog TV. Because we know that the content of dog TV is designed specifically to help your pet get through things, engage them, entertain them, and habituate them to things which otherwise might send them into a scary time.
Exactly. Yeah, there's certain things that are going to be on the channel that you're not able to expose them to, big groups of people. And eventually that might happen in the near future, potentially, maybe just on dog TV. So hopefully that does. And then another thing I was reading about this morning, and I didn't prep you for this, so please excuse me. Dogs are being trained to smell the coronavirus. Are you aware of that? Sort of what an incredible superpower. I mean, absolutely amazing. I think they should all get, like A+ for those dogs that are going around and smelling people to save their lives. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So what they did was they had a lot of saliva samples from infected and non-infected people, and the dogs who were being trained to select for that, who had originally been trained on to differentiate the two, were able to pick it out 94% of the time. So it was what they would call a sensitivity of 94% on that particular test, which is really awesome, particularly when you think about the implications of traveling and large groups of people, because one of the nefarious things about this virus is the vast majority of people who have it and are passing it along don't know that they have it. So when you talk about testing rates, the thing is, you test a whole large population, you find out that there's a big percentage of people in that population who are either very mildly sick or just not sick at all. And that subclinical tests, if we could find a way to do mass, quick screening for that, like dogs, it could be a real game changer. It'd be a great thing, particularly as we get to the end game of all virus responses, which is an effective and safe vaccine or herd immunity, which means that enough people in the population, usually 70 to 90% of the population, has been exposed and has immunity to that. But the dog detection thing is a really cool way to think about stuff. There's something in the saliva of people who are sick that they can pick up on that doesn't happen in people who aren't.
I'm happy we can't smell that. You're like smelling all your friends' mouths.
Sometimes I wish I could smell the world like a dog can smell the world. It's got to be an amazingly complex and beautiful place.
Wow, what maybe a cool technology. If there's anyone watching right now who can come up with that technology, you put it on your nose and then it enhances it enough.
I don't think my brain can handle it, man. I just don't think it's there enough.
It'd be overwhelming. It would need more. Well, thank you so much, Dr. David, for your time. Where can people where are you going for your source of information? We will want to make sure people are pointing at the right direction and not clickbaiting articles.
Sure. Always easy to misplace your trust these days because there's a lot of information out there. So the two main places that I go to is the CDC. They do have a section on COVID in pets, and then they work very closely with the American Veterinary Medical Association. So that's avma.org. And they've got a ton of information, updated frequently, lots of public health, and that's real data that you can trust.
Excellent. Thank you so much. If you're watching, thank you so much. We'll be doing more of these, giving you more information up to date. As always, Dr. David, absolute pleasure. I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and your entire family, fur family members.
Thank you. Everybody. You too. I hope everybody out there is staying safe and staying sane in these crazy times. But hang in there. We're going to get through it. All get through it together. And Joe, it's a pleasure. Happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. David. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.